Good morning. Thousands of dead cattle in Kansas this week. State officials say the cause is extreme heat and humidity and that it could get worse this weekend.
Senate Republicans are introducing bills to hold big tech accountable and increase transparency. Find out what steps lawmakers are taking.
Rising inflation is heightening fears of a recession. How can you prepare and protect yourself financially? We spoke to a financial advisor.
Biologists in Australia have made advances in marine health, discovering a new technique for assessing the health of their beautiful marine life. Good morning. Welcome to NTD Daybreak. I'm Kevin Hogan.
And I'm Evelyn Lee. Good morning. We're happy to have you with us this morning. It's June 16th, a Thursday. According to a spokesperson for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, at least 2,000 cattle deaths have been caused by high temperatures and humidity as of Tuesday. The number comes from facilities asking the agency for help disposing of the carcasses. Now a video showing hundreds of dead cattle is making its rounds on Twitter. Kansas state officials say thousands of cattle were killed by extreme heat and humidity in recent days. And heat waves are continuing to threaten livestock. This particular video has not been verified, but it is suggested it is from Kansas in relation to the recent cattle deaths. The spokesperson for the Kansas Livestock Association says cattle began suffering heat stress as temperatures and humidity spiked over the weekend, and with cooling winds disappearing, the animals could not acclimate to the sudden change.
Users on Twitter weighed in, with many disputing the official reports. One user claims he talked to a farmer that says he lost 3,000 cattle and it wasn't from heat. Speculations range from lightning and insurance fraud to poisoned feed or neglect. According to weather reports, temperatures in Kansas ranged between 95 and 100 degrees on Saturday. Temperatures are expected to reach near 110 degrees in western Kansas this weekend. Kansas is the third largest U.S. cattle state, behind Texas and Nebraska, with over 2.4 million cattle in feedlots.
Senator John Thune, with support from other Senate Republicans, is introducing bills to hold big tech accountable and increase transparency. The bills aim to give American consumers more control over their experience and decide for themselves what content they want to see. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more details.
Well, I think you can see that's a problem.
Thune criticized big tech companies for shaping the information seen by users through the use of undisclosed algorithms, and introduced bills to shed more light on the secretive practices used by internet platforms. One is called the Bipartisan Filter Bubble Transparency Act. It would require platforms to release biannual reports outlining material they remove or choose to de-emphasize using filter algorithms.
People are often not aware of just how much their experience on technology platforms is being shaped by opaque algorithms.
The algorithms controlling what the user sees are frequently called filter bubbles. They would also have to give users the choice to switch to a version of the platform that is filter bubble free.
As these platforms play an ever greater role in shaping the information we receive, it is vital that we insist on adequate transparency and ensure that Americans are given the opportunity to opt out of the filter bubble.
Another bill being proposed by Thune is the Bipartisan Platform Accountability and Transparency Act. It would require platforms publicly release easy-to-understand reports and provide due process for removed or otherwise moderated content, giving users the reasons for actions taken and the chance to appeal any decisions.
As technology platforms play an ever more dominant role in our lives, I believe platforms should be required to make users aware of the fact that an algorithm is controlling the content they see.
A recent study published by North Carolina State University, called A Peek into the Political Biases in Email Spam Filtering Algorithms During the 2020 U.S. Election, revealed email services allegedly filtering political content. In reference to the study, Thune says Google's Gmail sent a greater number of Republican campaign emails to spam folders, while Yahoo and Outlook sent more Democrat emails to spam, although in lesser margins than Gmail.
Americans should have access to political communications from both parties so that they can make their own informed decisions on what candidates they wish to support.
Thune says almost 70% of Republican political communication was sent to spam by Google's algorithm, compared to just 8% of Democratic emails. The bill, called the Political Bias and Algorithm Sorting Emails Act, would ban email services from using algorithms to sort emails sent by federal political campaigns.
Americans are free to opt out of whatever email communications they wish, including political communications, but big tech should not be making that decision for them.
Email services would also be required to submit transparency reports noting the number of emails flagged as spam from political campaigns, and provide information to political campaigns on request. Google denies the findings and says it does not filter emails based on political affiliation. 20 Republican senators support the bill, including Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Following the ousting of San Francisco's DA, there's a new development in another California city. A group leading the effort to recall LA's district attorney announced it has surpassed the amount of needed signatures to get on the November ballot. NTD's Jason Blair reports.
On June 15th, the campaign to recall Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon said they have exceeded the 566,857 signatures required to get the recall on the November ballot. Now the focus for the campaign is to keep collecting additional signatures to offset any that might be ruled as invalid, saying that simply clearing the required threshold is not enough. We must build the necessary cushion for signatures that are inevitably invalidated. In a June 1st interview with the How We Win podcast, Gascon referred to the recall effort as driven by very conservative, very right-wing forces. 1 week ago in San Francisco, voters recalled San Francisco's District Attorney Chesa Boudin with 55% of the vote. Now the campaign has 3 more weeks to keep collecting signatures before the July 6th deadline. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
And U.S. Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci has tested positive for COVID-19. The National Institute of Health says Fauci was experiencing mild symptoms and will self-isolate and continue to work from home. 81-year-old Fauci is fully vaccinated and twice boosted. He also hasn't recently been in close contact with President Biden, according to the agency. Fauci is the latest member of the president's inner circle to come down with COVID. Cabinet officials, press officials, Biden's daughter, and even the vice president have tested positive in recent months.
Senator Marco Rubio expressed concerns about the origin of the CCP virus in a strongly worded letter he sent to Harvard President Lawrence Bacow on Wednesday. In the letter, he addressed the issue prompted by a Spectator magazine investigation that Harvard may be actively supporting America's principal adversary, the Chinese Communist Party. Rubio told the Spectator in an exclusive interview, "Throughout the pandemic, we were told to trust the experts, but what we increasingly see is so-called trusted experts and institutions engaged in highly questionable behavior." He also identified the need to uncover COVID-19's origins and those who misled the public. The article revealed that questionable relations exist between Harvard Medical School and real estate giant Evergrande, a company with strong ties to the CCP.
Over 2 years after the CCP virus or COVID was detected in China, the World Health Organization is now recommending a deeper probe into the origins of the virus and into whether a lab accident may be to blame.
This clearly is a massive U-turn from their previous stance. Many critics pointed out that the WHO was dismissive of the lab leak theory and that it only reinforced the idea that they were trying to appease China.
That's right, and many scientists at the time supported the idea that the virus jumped to humans from bats. But a report released by the WHO's expert group says that key pieces of data to explain how the pandemic began were still missing. They also say they remain open to any new scientific evidence that becomes available in the future.
The Chinese regime denied the allegations and continues to be uncooperative on the matter. Their defense is always to label it anti-Chinese propaganda.
President Biden and oil refiners are at odds over the reason behind soaring gas prices. The White House sent a letter to major oil companies pushing them to produce more oil for less profit. And the American Petroleum Institute responded. NTD's Melina Weisskopf with why they say it's a misguided policy agenda from the White House that's driving up costs.
$5 per gallon is now the average cost for gas. The president, facing mounting pressure over these soaring prices, is now pinning the responsibility on oil refineries. Biden sent a letter to major companies accusing them of price gouging and calling on them to increase their capacity to refine more oil while lowering the costs.
And he wants to hear from the refineries, the companies who are doing refining, to see what is the bottleneck and how we can increase supply.
In a bid to dampen the skyrocketing gas costs, this week the administration announced they're selling 45 million barrels of crude oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve as part of their plan to release 1 million barrels a day for 6 months. But these efforts have not yet lowered the price at the pump. In his letter, the president acknowledged that his efforts to lower costs aren't working, but he said that the companies are to blame, writing, quote, "The lack of refining capacity and resulting unprecedented refinery profit margins are blunting the impact of the historic actions my administration has taken to address Vladimir Putin's price hike." The American Petroleum Institute pushed back, saying that it's the White House's, quote, "misguided policy of turning away from domestic energy that has added headwinds to their efforts to ramp up production." The Energy Institute offered the White House 10 solutions for lowering costs, including lifting development restrictions and ending permitting obstructions, among others. Senator Marco Rubio tells us that the White House's aggressive push to transition to renewable energy is compounding the issue.
So when you tell someone that a facility that you need to run at least 15 years to break even is not going to be needed in 10 or 15 years because of Green New Deals and energy, why would somebody build a refinery or operate one?
And some lawmakers say the solution is to walk a middle path between renewable energy and encouraging oil production.
And I think we need to do both, and what we believe is that it's not either or, and it's a false choice to say it's taking on making sure we deal with climate change and oil and gas prices. We believe we can do both.
But we haven't seen that there's enough lawmakers willing to walk that middle path, at least not enough in order to come to an agreement on a proposal that could effectively lower energy costs. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
The latest indication that the hot housing market is cooling, some of the nation's largest real estate companies are laying off employees. Redfin Real Estate says it is reducing its workforce by about 8%. The company says demand for its services in May was 17% below expectations. Meanwhile, Compass says it is cutting about 450 of its 4,500 employees. The company is also pausing hiring, expansion, and mergers and acquisitions until the end of 2022. These layoffs come as interest rates increase, causing the prices of homes to go up.
The Federal Reserve just raised interest rates by 75 basis points, hoping to curb Americans' willingness to spend money. That's the biggest increase since 1994.
Clearly, today's 75 basis point increase is an unusually large one, and I do not expect moves of this size to be common. From the perspective of today, either a 50 basis point or a 75 basis point increase seems most likely at our next meeting. We will, however, make our decisions meeting by meeting and will continue to communicate our thinking as clearly as we can.
Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, says that they will continue to raise rates as needed throughout the year. Now economists are increasingly worried the aggressive steps could induce a recession. Yesterday, Van Skin, a senior economist, told us with inflation still running hot, things will probably get worse before they get better. So today, we invited Eric Alexander, a financial advisor at Benchmark. He will be giving us some tips on how to prepare for those tough times ahead. It's great to have you, Eric.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
My pleasure. And I think I'm speaking for a lot of people when I'm saying I'm excited to get some advice from an expert on this. And my mind first goes to how I can reduce my spending. So are there any easy ways to significantly cut costs?
Yeah, that's always a tough one because it really goes to this idea of how can I save more, which is a question that we usually get. But when inflation's high, it becomes a really challenging activity. One of the easy ways to go reduce spending is if you have the opportunity to do work from home, or if you have the opportunity to have some days at home, some days at work. One of the easy things you can do there is cut your fuel costs. And that's one of the big inflation tickets that we're seeing right now is really just being able to work from home and reduce some of your gas usage. And one of the second is, we're coming into that summer season where people are traveling quite a bit. And so, maybe a staycation if you're really looking for ways to save money versus traveling or driving or taking a flight.
I see. And now, with pay raises not really being able to keep up with inflation rate,
right.
Are there any other ways for us to increase our income?
Yeah, and that's really a big question that we've gotten quite a bit. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the where should I be investing and what should I be doing with my money in this kind of volatile time. And a lot of that really is driven by where you're going to go invest. And so some of the things that we have conversations with clients about is investing in things that are actually generating cash flow versus investing in things that are just going up in value. For example, if I'm going to go invest in Apple, what I want out of Apple is I want the stock price to be bigger tomorrow than it is today. But if I'm investing in real estate or if I'm investing in dividend producing assets, then while I'm concerned about the value of the underlying asset going up, what I really, really enjoy is I enjoy the cash flow. And so if you have the ability to get into either private real estate where you're managing the property or real estate investment funds, then you may have the opportunity for income or cash from those assets, which can really help reduce some of the pressure that you feel from inflation. Because especially with real estate, if you have the ability to raise rents over time and as inflation comes up, then you've got a natural hedge against some of the inflationary pressures.
Interesting. And many now see a recession coming towards us. How can we and should we prepare for that financially?
So really one of the key things to do is just an old school remedy is some savings on hand. And a lot of people talk about having a month and a half. I really would recommend as we start getting into these potential recessionary periods, having 2 to 3 to even 4 months of liquidity on hand just to weather that storm.
Oh, okay, 4 months. And talking about that, we're waiting for the biggest rate hike in around 30 years. But
right.
how does that affect us? And what does that mean for the average American?
Well, the big impact on the rate hikes are really going to come from two areas. One is, we've seen a lot of movement in the country of, California. I live in Texas, so California to Texas and New York to Florida, and we see a lot of real estate movement. And so we see kind of booms in some of those areas where real estate prices have gone just through the roof. A house today versus a year ago is up, 20, 30%, it feels like sometimes. The other end of the rate hike you'll see is its impact on the bond market. Typically, interest rates and bond prices move like a seesaw. So when interest rates are down, bond prices are up. And as interest rates rise, bond prices can fall. And so I think we are primed to see a little bit of risk on the fixed income side of the market, which is something to definitely watch out for.
All right, some very good points that I'm also taking with me today. Thank you so much, Eric Alexander, Benchmark.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Coming up, 2 Americans are feared to have been captured by Russian forces after vanishing during an intense battle with Russian soldiers near Kharkiv on June 9th. And the Canadian government introduced a bill this week to bar Huawei and ZTE from the country's 5G network. We'll have all that and more for you right here on NTD Daybreak. The search is on for 2 Americans missing in Ukraine, feared to have been captured by Russian forces. The 2 men were fighting alongside Ukrainian forces just north of Kharkiv and vanished during a chaotic battle with Russian forces on June 9th. Here's more on the story.
They've been missing for nearly a week now. 2 Alabama natives fighting alongside Ukrainian forces just north of Kharkiv vanished during a chaotic battle with Russian forces on June 9th. The mother of one of the missing men says they are presumed to be prisoners of war, but that has not been confirmed. Meanwhile, in Washington, the Defense Department has unveiled a new $1 billion assistance package they're sending to Ukraine to help fight the Russian invasion.
That includes a drawdown of security assistance valued up to $350 million. That's where the Department of Defense pulls from their stocks, as well as $650 million in equipment that's provided through the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative funds. That's where the the Pentagon will go out and procure material according in that amount to then just provide directly to Ukraine. So there are two different buckets of that $1 billion.
A senior U.S. defense official believes that the latest Ukrainian aid package will arrive in time to make a significant difference on the battlefield, as the war is believed to be in the phase where Russia will continue to only make incremental gains for a while.
This is the 12th time that President Biden has authorized presidential drawdowns to help Ukraine defend its democracy, and that brings the total amount of security assistance that we provided to Ukraine to approximately $5.6 billion just since Russia launched its assault.
In other news, after announcing its intent to ban Chinese telecom Huawei and ZTE, the Canadian government introduced a bill this week to bar Huawei and ZTE from the country's 5G network. NTD's Don Ma reports in Canada.
This will give our government the legal authority to compel any action necessary to secure our telecommunications system.
Mr. Mendicino.
Canadian Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino presented Bill C-26 to the House of Commons this week, aiming to protect vital sectors from cyber threats, including the finance, energy, transportation, and telecommunications industries.
On May 19th, that we would exclude, that our intention was to include Huawei and ZTE from our telecom network, 4G and 5G in Canada. I would say this is the legal authority that will allow us to do that.
After the bill writes into law, the federal government will then have the power to prohibit Canadian telecom companies from using products from high-risk suppliers. The government said that Canadian telecoms will have to remove 5G equipment and services from Huawei and ZTE by mid-2024 and 4G equipment by the end of 2027. However, the ban on Huawei and ZTE equipment will not cover smartphones or other devices.
What we're targeting is the critical infrastructures, the network. It's not the phones or other type of equipment that the companies may decide to sell in Canada.
Canada has been under pressure for years, especially from the U.S., to ban Huawei from its 5G network. There's been security concerns that the telecom companies assist the Chinese Communist Party with intelligence gathering and surveillance. Now Canada finally aligns itself with the Five Eyes intelligence group, which includes the U.S., the U.K., Australia, and New Zealand. Don Ma, NTD News, Canada.
And after the break, one step closer to creating green energy. A Hungarian company developed a paving material made out of recycled plastic. It also collects solar energy. And adored internationally for their marine life, Australians are developing ways to protect it. More on that coming up.
Walking on sunshine is no longer just a feeling. A company has created a paving material that collects solar energy while people walk, bike, or even drive over it.
I think this will be the future.
Yes, I think it looks great, and especially if it's placed in front of a building.
A wise paving stone has been born. A Hungarian company came up with a paving surface that can collect energy from the sun. They named it Pladio from the Greek philosopher Plato and the Spanish term patio.
If someone is looking for an innovative and design building material which is generating clean energy and doesn't compromise the aesthetics, I think Plateau is for them.
The paver came into being in 2015 when 3 childhood friends put their minds together to create paving stones out of recycled waste. They made a paver that can be installed in public places, driveways, gardens, or terraces. Then they thought, if so many surfaces are paved in the city, why don't we make use of it and generate energy too?
We have a tempered glass on the top and an anti-slippage surface, so this is safe for human usage, and then obviously this is safe from electricity point of view as well.
These companies also use this product because they can create their own green energy. And it's really good for a corporate image, like we have with Graphisoft Park, Microsoft, Volvo.
It's as efficient energy-wise as normal solar panels, but it can cover a lot more surface. However, the price tag is higher than the average solar panel. At this stage, the paver is more suitable for city projects.
We have several government installations on public places. I think we have more than 40 installations, so in various countries, from Hong Kong to Mauritius, Thailand, and Barcelona, many places in Germany.
And we created a 100 square meter huge installation, and that's the first solar square of Austria. The Viennese installation, it's more than 1.2 megawatt, which is quite great for that size.
Palladio is created out of recycled industrial plastic. A specific recipe is used to make it as strong as concrete. That's why it can handle up to 2-ton cars driving over it. Still, it is not designed for roads or highways. The company is working on making the pavers cheaper so that families can install them as well.
It is quite great for areas where there are, let's say, hurricane areas, where you really need to depend on your own energy because sometimes you're cut away from the grid.
Yes, you can charge your car as well. Obviously, this is not a fast charging solution. You can charge your car and use like 40-50 kilometers per day.
A 5 square meter installation creates enough energy to charge up to 5 electric bicycles or scooters. A small step, but they are paving the way to a greener future.
A pretty cool invention. Australia is home to both the Great Barrier Reef and to biologists wanting to preserve it. So they've developed a new technique to help them do just that. Have a look.
Pulsing gently underwater and swaying to and fro with the tide, soft corals are often under-researched and overlooked compared to their hard coral cousins.
Soft corals are still super important. They provide tons of food and shelter for other species. They grow really quickly, so they're good at recolonizing after a major disturbance, such as like a big cyclone or a bleaching event. And honestly, they're just beautiful.
While soft coral are resistant to heat wave bleaching events, if bleaching does happen, it can be catastrophic. However, protecting all coral from heat waves is not financially possible, so determining which soft coral are susceptible provides a practical solution.
So you need to know specifically, like, yes, these are the species that we need to protect. These are the species that are going to be fine no matter what we do. And that's kind of the importance of going through and looking species by species by species.
The technique involves spinning a soft coral puree in a centrifuge, thereby separating the algae from the coral protein. High levels of algae indicates healthy coral. This assessment technique can also be used for other marine life.
Swimmer Barbara Hernandez announced on Tuesday that she had received a Guinness World Record. The Chilean swam between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans in Cabo de Hornos in southern Chile. Hernandez broke the Guinness record by swimming 1 nautical mile in 15 minutes and 3 seconds in February. She was also awarded for being the first person to ever swim 3 nautical miles, that's almost 3.5 miles, between both oceans. During her feat, Hernandez was monitored closely by the Chilean Navy. She wasn't allowed to receive assistance, stop to rest, or even wear a wetsuit. Hernandez says she found the main obstacle to be the very cold water temperatures. It's only about 45 degrees. It's also a distance that at that location had never been swam by anyone.
That's certainly a massive obstacle. To travel that far in water that cold increases the risk of hypothermia. Hernandez says she felt it was an emotional experience, as her dream had always been to become a swimmer.
Sadly, her grandfather passed away shortly after she finished her swim across the oceans. She says family is what drives her, and she also draws her motivation from that environment.
After she completed the swim, she said that she believes in dreaming big and, most importantly, building on those dreams.
What an inspiring story.
It is, yeah. And I gotta hand it to her. That's some cold water. I use a wetsuit when it's that cold.
Yeah, as one should, because that's the more safe way to do it. That's all for today's news. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.